Alright guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take everything we learned about regular expressions and we're going to implement a form with Bootstrap that has some really nice validation. Alright, so we're going to go to getbootstrap.com, go to get started, and from here there is a starter template that we're going to grab. Okay, we're going to copy that and let's create a new folder for our little project here and we'll just call it user form. And actually let's open that with VS Code or whatever text editor you're using. And then we're going to create our index.html file. And we're going to paste that starter template in. And let's be sure to go down to the bottom here and add in an extra script tag and give it a source of app.js. Okay, before I forget. So then we'll create our app.js file. And now we're going to go back to index.html and create our little user interface. All right, so let's clear out the H1 here and let's put in a container. Again, I'm not going to, go over the Bootstrap syntax really. It's pretty simple. We're just adding a grid with a 6-column div. So we're going to say call md6 and we want to move that everything to the middle. So we're going to use mx-auto. And then inside here, let's put an H1 and we'll just say user form. And then under the H1, we'll put our form. All right, doesn't need an action, doesn't need anything. And then we'll put a class of form group, which is standard Bootstrap syntax. We'll put a label. Label doesn't need any for attribute. This will be for the name. And then we want an input. Input will be type text, and then we want to give it a class of form control. Okay, let's give it an ID of name, not capital, and then placeholder of name. All right, and then underneath that we're going to have a class called invalid-feedback. All right, and then for the message here, I'm going to say name must be between 2 and 10 characters. All right, now if I save this and we open this, let's use our live server here, you'll see that this error message is not showing here. And that's how it's supposed to be. The only way that this message shows is if your input has a class called isInvalid. Okay, now if I save this, what happens is the input turns red, and then we get this red message down here, which is whatever we put here. So from within our JavaScript, we have to add this class dynamically if we want to show this error. So just remember that, okay? But we want to remove it initially. We want to dynamically add it if there's an error. Okay, that's how Bootstrap validation works. So what I'm going to do now is just copy the form group, which ends right here. So we're just going to grab that, and we want 3 more fields. So after name, we're going to have the zip code, and we're going to change the placeholder. We're going to change the ID to zip. We're going to change the message to say enter a valid zip code. All right, and then we're going to do an email. We're going to change the placeholder to email. We're going to change the ID to email and change the message to enter a valid email. Now, you're probably already thinking right now, well, why don't we just add the type email right here, because that will automatically give us validation if we're using HTML5. Now, I'm not doing that because I want to teach you how to do it without doing that. I want to teach you how to do it with regular expressions, which is what we had to do in the old days before HTML5, before this feature where we could just say type email. And it's just a good exercise to have. All right, so, and you may be using XHTML or some reason why you can't use that functionality. All right, so down here we're going to say phone phone number, and we'll change the placeholder to phone number, change the ID, and change the message here to enter a valid phone. All right, and then we'll just put a submit button. Say input submit value submit, and let's give it a class, couple classes, btn, btn primary, and btn block, and save. And now we have our form. Now the way that we want to do this, or that I want to do this, is every time we put something in here, when we cause the blur event, so when we click out of the form, that's when I want the validation to go off. I don't want to simply make it so that when we submit the form, all the stuff shows. I want it to be dynamic, where we leave the form field and it tells us if it's right or wrong. Okay, so we're going to go to our app.js here, and we're going to first of all just create a bunch of event listeners for these input fields. So let's say document.getElementById, name, we want to add an event listener, and we want the blur event. All right, so blur, and then we're going to call validate name. Okay, and I'm just going to add a bunch of event listeners here. Let's just put a comment here. We'll say form blur event listeners. So we'll do 3 more. We have name, we have zip. That's going to call validate zip. Email is going to call validate email. And phone is going to call validate phone. All right. So let's go ahead and create these functions. All right, so this will be zip. Okay. So let's save that. Let's open up our console over here. Cannot add an event listener of null. I have a capital P here. That's probably what they're talking about. All right, so validate name. So this is going to happen on the blur event. Now, first thing we want to do is get the value of the name field. So let's create a variable called name and set it to document.getElementById. Name, and let's go ahead and create a variable for our regular expression that we want to match. So we want our slashes, and what I want to do is I want this to be, the name should be letters between A and Z, capital or lowercase, and it should be between 2 and 10. I know that 10 is kind of short. I mean, a lot of names could be longer than 10, but this is just an example. You can change it if you want. I just don't want to type in 1,000,000 characters to test it. So what we're going to do is put in starts with. So remember, starts with is the caret symbol. Then we want our brackets, and we're going to say this can be A to Z lowercase or A to Z uppercase. And we want that, we want to use a quantifier here. We want to say between 2 and 10. And then we want to end it. Okay, so we use our $. That's it. That's our regular expression. So what I'm going to use to actually evaluate this is I'm going to say if not re.test, I'm going to use the test method and then pass in the name.value. Okay, .value will get the actual input we add. So we're testing that, and then we're going to, if that is invalid, then remember we need to add that is invalid class to this this input in order to see the message and to make this red. So we can just say name dot class list dot add, and then we can simply add a class. So we'll say is dash invalid. Okay, and then if not else, then we want to make sure that this is removed. So we're going to say dot remove is invalid, and that's it. So let's try it out. So we'll go ahead and we'll go in here, we'll put in one character and then cause the blur event, and there we go. Name must be between 2 and 10 characters. If I put in whatever, less than 10 but more than 2, it's okay. If I go and I pass 10, it's not okay. All right, so let's count. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9 works, 10 works, 11 does not work. All right, so that's our first validation. So the next one for the zip code, they're all going to be formatted like this, so I'm just going to copy this. All we're changing here really is the expression and the field. So this is going to be the zip, and we're going to get it by the ID of zip. And for our regular expression, remember a zip code can be it's 5 number. I'm going by US zip codes. I don't know any other country's zip code formats. You guys can, maybe that's a little challenge if you guys are outside of the US and you want to figure it out. Maybe that's a little challenge you can do. But in the US we have a 5-digit zip code, and sometimes we add dash and then 4 more numbers on the end. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have 5 numbers with the optional -4. So let's get rid of this, and let's say we want to start with 0 through 9, and we want 5 of those, so 5 numbers. And then what I want to do is group together. So remember, parentheses group. I want to group the dash and then 0 through 9 again, and we want 4 of those, so we're going to say quantifier 4. Now this is, I want it to be optional, and remember the question mark makes this optional. So it's going to take everything in this group here and make it optional. All right, and then I just want to end with a money sign. So let's go ahead and do zip dot value, change this to zip, and this to zip, and let's try it. So let's put in just a 3, 3. That doesn't work. Let's do 3, 3, 4, 4. Doesn't work. 1 more. That's 5. That works. All right. Now if I just do a dash, that's not going to work. If I do -3, not going to work. It needs to be 4 numbers. That works. Okay. If I put 1 more in, doesn't work. So we can either do a 5-digit zip code or we can do this full format. I'm not sure what that's called, but yeah, so that's our zip code validation. All right, so you can see that these are pretty powerful, these regular expressions, and you can do a lot more intricate things than this. So now we're going to do the email. So I'm going to copy this, and let's change this to email. All right, so this is going to be a little more difficult. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. So we want the caret to start, and we're going to end with the money sign. And then in here, what we want is to group together a bunch of stuff. And we want to do brackets. And remember, an email address is something@something.com. So we want letters or numbers. So we can do A to Z, A to Z, whoops, A to capital Z. We can do 0 to 9, and we can do underscore, and then we're going to do a, we want a literal dash, so we're going to do backslash, dash, backslash, and then a literal dot. Okay, I think that's right. When you start getting into these long expressions, it can get pretty confusing. But we want to be able to have letters, numbers, underscores, dashes, and dots. All right, and if we don't use the escape character here, then we're going to run into some trouble. Okay, we also want to put the plus here because we want to search for more than one. All right, then we want a literal @ sign. So we're going to go outside of the group and we're going to just put an @ okay, and that's a literal character. Then we want another group, okay, and this group is going to be the same thing. So I'm just going to copy everything inside these parentheses and put them inside here. So it could be something @ so let's say Brad @ Gmail. Then we want a literal dot. Okay, so we're going to go outside of the parentheses here, and we want a literal dot, so we're going to escape it with a \, okay, and put our dot. Then we want our last group, so another set of parentheses, and this is going to be the .com, .net, .whatever, and it can be up to 5. I think 5 is the longest TLD that's available. I know there's media, so MEDIA. Yeah, 5 should be the longest. So let's say in here we want, it can be A to Z, A to Z, no numbers. It can't be, 1.1 or something like that. And then we want our quantifier, which can be from 2 to 5, because you have like .me, which is 2, and then like .media, which is 5. I don't think there's anything longer than that, at least in this case, that we're going to accept. So that should be it, I believe. That's a regular expression for an email address. So let's try it. We'll save. We'll go over here. We'll say test. Doesn't work. Let's say test @ doesn't work. Test at test doesn't work. .com does work. All right. If we say .co, which is another extension, that works. .media, that works. All right. So our email address is now validating. Come to think of it, I think there are longer TLDs, but we're just going to keep it at 5. So now for the phone number. So let's go ahead and copy all of this. And let's change this to phone. Phone. Regular expression. I'm going to clear it out except for the beginning and end. This will be phone. And phone. All right. So our expression for the phone is going to be, I want to accept a lot of different formats. So we might do 555, 555, 5555. We might do that. We might do a dot in between like that. We might do a space in between, and we might use parentheses like that. All right, so I want to accept all of those formats, or even just all of the numbers together, like that. So this is going to be quite a long one. So let's go ahead and let's do the parentheses. Now we want literal parentheses. So we want a backslash, literal parentheses, and inside here we want, let's see, and actually the parentheses need to be optional, so we want a question mark. Okay, remember, a question mark makes whatever is before it optional. And then after the question mark, we're going to do a digit, so /D, so that's going to be a digit, and we want 3 of those, so we're going to use a quantifier of 3. All right, and then we're going to do another backslash, parentheses, because this is a literal parenthesis. Okay, it's not part of a group, it's literal parentheses because we want them to be able to add them in here. All right, so that's the first part, and then we want to be able to separate with an optional dash, dot, or space. So after the parentheses right here, we're going to say Oh, and I forgot the question mark, because again, this is the parentheses is optional. But after that, we're going to put our brackets, and we're going to say this can be a dash, a dot, or a space. And that's going to be optional as well, because like I said, I want them to be able to just put the straight number in. All right, so that's optional. Then we're going to do another digit, or another set of 3 digits. So we'll go like that. And then again, brackets with dash, dot, space, which is optional. And then another set of digits. This time it'll be 4 digits. And I think that's it. Yeah, so that should do it. So let's save that. Let's go down here. Let's do 555-5555. That works. If I take away one of those 5s, does not work. If I do parentheses, that works. If I do no space or no anything there, that works. If I do a dot here and here, that works. If I do what else? Yeah, just a dot, dash, and space, that works. Okay, whether we have parentheses or not. Oops. Okay, and even if I just do all the numbers like that, that also works. If I add an extra number, it does not work. So that's a pretty good regular expression. That's a pretty good pattern for a phone number. All right, guys, I know that this was kind of a long one. Hopefully you learned something from it. Feel free to use these expressions in your code when you're doing validation, and that's it. Thanks for watching.